Okay, so today we're going to get into a case that I think really hits on a lot of different
Yeah.
things, but it starts with this really brutal crime, the murders of 11-year-old Robin Cornell and 32-year-old Lisa Story back in 1990. And, we're looking at an episode of Anatomy of Murder that you sent us. And it's a tough one. It's really about not just the crime itself, but it's about the journey for justice for Robin's mother, Jan. They lived in this condo in Cape Coral, Florida. And just imagine being Jan, finding that scene. It's just unimaginable. And she goes on this like 33-year journey. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it's
It's a
it's one of those cases that really shows how much things have changed. Even just from like the 90s to today with DNA technology. But just the fact that somebody could live with that for so long, not knowing, that's what really gets me.
Yeah, and the episode talks about how there were hundreds of interviews, and the community was so shaken up by
Oh
this.
yeah, they're terrified.
They collected DNA samples.
Right. But back then,
Yeah, back then it wasn't like it is today,
Exactly.
where they can just like
put it into a computer and like
delay.
magic, it pops out. It was very different.
And for years, it was like they were just hitting a wall. But Jan, she made this promise to find her daughter's killer.
It's amazing.
And that's kind of like the thread that goes through this whole story.
Yeah, like even the investigators, they talk about how much she keep pushing them to look at new things, to try new things
Yeah.
as technology was developing.
She was convinced that they would find him. And then it was 2016, and they get a hit from CODIS, this national DNA database.
Right, CODIS.
Yeah.
That's where they keep all the profiles.
And it points to this guy, Joseph Zeeler.
But here's the thing. His DNA wasn't in there for something big. He got arrested for like a pellet gun thing.
Are you serious?
Like super minor.
I mean, that's wild. Like, what if he hadn't done that?
Right. That's the crazy part. Pure luck.
But then, the way he acts when the police question him,
Oh, yeah.
so strange.
He's like all over the place, can't remember anything, doesn't know Robin and Lisa.
But they have this recording from just a month before, during that pellet gun arrest.
Oh, right.
And his memories is totally fine.
Oh, yeah, he remembers everything. Girlfriend, childhood. It's so different.
It's crazy.
Like he's trying to act
Yeah.
like he's confused.
Like an old man.
But the police weren't buying it. They had the DNA.
And then he starts sending these letters to Jan
Oh, my gosh.
while he's waiting for trial.
Yeah.
And they're really messed up.
What did he say?
Like, he claimed they had this relationship, told her to stop the investigation,
Yeah.
even said she was involved with drugs.
It's like he's making stuff up.
And he knew things about her that she'd kept secret,
Like what?
her married name.
Wow.
She hadn't used it publicly for years. She was afraid.
Oh, that's just, I can't even imagine.
That's just awful. But she gives those letters to the prosecution.
Good for her.
And then they wait for the trial. 7 years.
7 years.
Partially because of COVID.
Wow.
Jan has been living with this for over 3 decades.
I can't even imagine.
And then when the trial finally starts in 2023, Zeeler's behavior is just bizarre.
What did he do?
He shows up with this like homemade grill on his teeth.
A grill?
Yeah, like a killer grill.
Ugh.
He has these outbursts, gets removed from the courtroom.
What do you think he was trying to do?
I don't know. It's like he wanted the attention,
Yeah.
even if it was negative attention. But the episode goes into the trial itself, and they explain how these death penalty cases work in Florida. With like the 3 phases, the guilty phase,
Yeah.
and the penalty phase, and then the final sentencing.
Right, because it's not just guilty or not guilty when there's a chance of the death penalty. They have to figure out if it's warranted.
Yeah, so like in the penalty phase, the prosecution and the defense are basically arguing about why he should or shouldn't get the death penalty.
So what were their arguments in Zeeler's case?
Well, the prosecution, they were really focusing on how brutal these murders were and how much Robin and Lisa suffered. And they said it wasn't just like a random thing. It was planned out because he moved from room to room. And they also brought up his past crimes and how he was already out on bond for another felony.
So they were painting a picture of him as a dangerous person,
Exactly.
someone who might do it again.
And the defense, they brought in some doctors
Yeah.
who talked about Zeeler's mental health. Like he had anxiety, depression, even pre-Parkinson's disease.
So they were trying to say that maybe he wasn't fully in control.
But they didn't say he was insane or that he couldn't stand trial.
Interesting.
It's like they were trying to get him a life sentence
Yeah.
instead of death.
I wonder if the jury believed any of it.
I mean, with all his weird behavior
Yeah,
and the letters,
right.
it seems like they had already decided. And in
Yeah.
the end, they did recommend the death penalty,
Wow.
but it wasn't unanimous. It was 10-2.
For each murder.
Yeah.
Wow.
But even with that recommendation, the judge still had to make the final decision.
Right.
And that's where the sentencing hearing comes in.
So what happened there?
Well, it was a very emotional day. A lot of people spoke, friends and family of both Robin and Lisa, talking about how their lives had been affected.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. And they played a clip from Lisa's fiance.
Oh.
He was still heartbroken. And Lisa's sister talked about how traumatized she was. And some of Robin's childhood friends talked about how they had lived in fear for years, not knowing who did it.
I bet. That must have been terrifying.
And of course, Jan gave a statement about the terror she felt all those years, wondering if they would ever find him, and just
Oh.
the pain of imagining Robin's last moments.
I can't even imagine.
And in the end, the judge upheld the jury's recommendation and sentenced Zieler to death.
Wow.
After 33 years, justice was finally served.
But even with the conviction, there are still questions like why?
Right.
Why would he do that?
That's what always gets me about these kinds of cases. We can look at all the evidence, we can follow a trial, but there's this part of it that we just don't understand.
The human element, that
Yeah.
darkness.
Like with Zieler. And his weird behavior during the trial. Was he just trying to disrupt things? Or was there something else going on?
It's hard to know. But one thing that really stands out to me is how much chance played a role in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, if he hadn't been arrested for that pellet gun, his DNA wouldn't be in the system.
And they might never have found him.
Exactly. It's incredible.
It makes you think about all the other cases out there. That could be solved
Yeah.
if we had more DNA profiles.
Yeah.
It's a tough question, though,
Oh, yeah,
because there are privacy concerns.
for sure.
But in this case, it's hard to argue with the outcome.
You're right. They finally got him.
After all those years.
It really shows the power of never giving up.
Yeah. The police never gave up. Jan never gave up.
And science caught up.
It's inspiring.
Yeah, especially for people dealing with unsolved cases,
It shows that it can happen.
even after a really long time.
You just have to keep pushing for answers.
And have faith.
And I think it's important to remember that this isn't just about the investigation. It's about Robin and Lisa. The episode does a good job of showing us who they were.
Yeah, like they talk about Lisa's love of nature and how compassionate she was.
On how much Robin loved her mom.
It reminds us that these were real people.
With lives and dreams. They were cut short.
And that so many other people were affected by their loss.
And that's what makes Jan's strength even more amazing. She not only fought for justice, but she kept their memories alive.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what are the big things you want the listener to remember?
For me, it's about how far we've come with science, like DNA analysis. And it shows that investigation works, even when it takes a long time. But most importantly, it's about the human spirit and never giving up hope.
I love that.
It's a tough case,
Mm.
but there's hope in it.
It reminds us that even when awful things happen, there are still good things in the world. There's still hope for healing, and justice is possible, even if it takes a lifetime.
Yeah, it's like he almost wanted to be the villain,
Right.
like he was playing a part.
But the episode really breaks down the trial,
Yeah.
and they talk about these three phases. In a death penalty case in Florida, like
Yeah.
the guilty phase,
Yeah.
then the penalty phase,
Yeah.
and then the final sentencing.
Right, it's not just guilty or not guilty when it comes to the death penalty.
So like in the penalty phase,
They have to decide if it's the right punishment.
yeah, they're basically arguing, should he get the death penalty or not?
So what were their arguments in Zieler's case?
Well, the prosecution, they talked about how brutal the murders were, how much Robin and Lisa suffered. And they said it wasn't just like a random act of violence, it was planned. Because he went from room to room,
Oh, wow.
and they brought up his past crimes and how he was already out on bond for another felony.
Oh, gee.
So they're basically saying,
Yeah.
this guy's dangerous, he's going to do it again.
Right.
And the defense, they had some doctors testify about Zieler's mental health. He had anxiety, depression, even pre-Parkinson's disease.
So they were trying to say maybe he wasn't thinking clearly.
Yeah, but they didn't go for an insanity plea or say he was incompetent to stand trial.
That's interesting.
It's like they were hoping for a life sentence
Yeah.
instead of death.
But with all his weird behavior, I wonder if the jury was buying any of it.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think they had already made up their minds,
Yeah.
and they did recommend the death penalty.
Wow.
10 to 2.
For each murder?
Yeah.
That's intense.
But the judge still had to make the final call.
Right.
That's what the sentencing hearing is for.
So what happened at the hearing?
Well, it was really emotional. Lots of people spoke.
Woo!
Friends and family of both Robin and Lisa, talking about how this had impacted their lives.
That must have been so hard.
Yeah. And they played a clip of Lisa's fiance.
Oh, wow.
He was still so heartbroken. And Lisa's sister talked about being traumatized.
So good.
And some of Robin's childhood friends spoke about living in fear for years.
Yeah, because they didn't know who did it. That must have been terrifying.
And, of course, Jan gave a statement about the terror she felt all those years and the pain of imagining Robin's last moments.
It's just unimaginable.
And ultimately, the judge agreed with the jury and sentenced Zieler to death.
Ah.
So after 33 years, there was finally justice.
But even with that, we still don't know why.
Right.
Why did he do it?
That's the thing about these cases. You can have all the evidence and the trial, but there's still this piece
Yeah.
that we just can't understand.
The human element.
Yeah.
The darkness.
Like with Zieler and his weird behavior at the trial. Was he trying to manipulate everyone, or was it something else?
It's hard to say.
But I think it's really interesting how much chance played a role in all of this.
What do you mean?
Like, if he hadn't been arrested for that pellet gun thing, his DA wouldn't have been in the system.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy to think about.
And they might never have found him.
Exactly.
It makes you think about all those other cases. That could be solved if we had more DNA profiles.
It's a tough question, though.
Yeah.
Because there are privacy concerns. Right.
But in this case, it's hard to argue with the outcome.
They finally got him.
After all those years.
It's really inspiring.
Yeah.
It shows the power of never giving up.
The police never gave up. Jan never gave up.
And science caught up.
It's a powerful message.
Yeah. Especially for people dealing with unsolved cases.
It shows that it can happen.
Even after a really long time.
Just got to keep pushing for answers.
And believe.
And I think it's important to remember that this isn't just about the investigation. It's about Robin and Lisa. The episode does a good job of showing who they were.
Yeah, like they talk about Lisa's love of nature, how kind she was.
And how close Robin was to her mom.
It reminds us that these were real people.
With hopes and dreams that were taken away.
And how many other people were hurt by their loss.
And that's what makes Jan's strength even more incredible. She not only fought for justice, but she kept their memories alive.
That's beautiful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways you want listeners to remember? For me, it's about how far we've come with science, like DNA technology. And it shows that investigations work, even if it takes a long time. But most of all, it's about the strength of the human spirit and never giving up hope.
That's a great message.
It's a tough case, but there's hope in it.
It reminds us that even when bad things happen, there's still good in the world. There's hope for healing. And justice is possible, even if it takes a lifetime.
It's a really powerful story, and I think what makes it even more impactful is how the episode really tries to show us who Robin and Lisa were, like beyond just the victims of this crime.
Yeah, they weren't just names on a police report. They were real people.
Right, and they have families and friends.
Yeah.
And dreams and goals.
And the episode talks about how Lisa loved nature.
Oh, yeah.
She was so compassionate. And Robin, she was just a sweet girl who was so close to her mom.
It's just heartbreaking to think about everything they lost.
And all the things they never got to experience.
And I think that's what makes Jan's strength so incredible.
Oh, absolutely. She fought so hard for justice, but she also made sure that Robin and Lisa wouldn't be forgotten.
Yeah, she kept their memories alive.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, for me, it's a story about the power of science and how DNA technology can really make a difference. But it's also a story about perseverance, about never giving up hope, even when it seems like all is lost.
And it's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's still good in the world. And there's still hope for healing.
Yeah, and that justice, even if it takes decades, is still possible.
This case really shows that. And it's something we should all remember. So thank you for sending us this episode. It's been a tough one, but an important one.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
And we hope you'll join us next time for another deep dive into a true crime case that's captivated the world.